Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. In today's video, we're going to discuss some of my takeaways, some of my thoughts on the 49ers Week 3 win over the New York Giants on Thursday Night Football. There is a lot to talk about, a lot to cover from this game, so let's not waste any time and let's jump right in. The 49ers beat the New York Giants in our home opener 30-12 on Thursday Night Football, and it's always great to get that win on Thursday Night Football because it gives your team that kind of mini bye week before your next matchup, and that's going to be Week 4 also at home against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, heading into this game, I had predicted the 49ers winning 30-17, so I was pretty darn close with my prediction. A couple of other, predictions came true. I thought, George Kittle was going to have a big game. He certainly did. So did Deebo Samuel. I mean, that was somewhat to be expected, though, with Brandon Ayuk missing the game. And that's going to be huge as well for the 49ers Week 4, getting him back. But if we look at this game, the scoreline, the 49ers, beat the Giants pretty easily. Then you look at the stats, and the 49ers absolutely dominated the stats. You'll see them here on the screen, just time of possession, yards, we got the turnover. Although the game did seem a little bit closer than what some of the numbers might suggest. Relatively deep into the game, it was 20-12, a one-score game. The 49ers eventually, just with talent and superior coaching, we were able to pull away, and at the end, it looked pretty comfortable. And I did always feel like the 49ers could have stepped it up into another gear if they really wanted to. But let's kick it off, and let's start off with the offense, and a big topic of discussion, of course, and every week it's going to be, how did Brock Purdy do? Statistically, like the 49ers as a team, Brock Purdy looked great statistically. I mean, just over 300 yards, his first time throwing over 300 yards in a regular season game, 2 touchdowns. You'd say, I'll take that any day. And statistically, you absolutely would. However, when I looked at the game and I saw it the day after, I didn't know the score beforehand, but I watched it today. And, there was definitely some throws that he missed, some reads that he made that were not great. There was that one play early on where Purdy threw it down the field to George Kittle. There was a defender, maybe it was a Dory Jackson, and luckily Kittle kind of played defender right there and just hit the ball away with his left hand, or else that would have been an easy interception. We do kind of get a little bit lucky with the ball flipping up and Ronnie Bell coming down with great heads-up play by Ronnie Bell, but I thought the offense looked a little bit out of sync. It just didn't look as fluid as what we saw, especially in Pittsburgh, where even though we scored the same amount of points, the offense seemed to run a bit smoother, I thought, in Pittsburgh. But overall, you have to be relatively happy with the Brock Purdy performance. It is one of those things where Brock Purdy hasn't played that many games, and then you have the short week. It's not the same kind of preparation that you get as if you're going to play on Sunday or Monday night. So I did expect the offense to look a little bit different. Also, you factor in that we didn't have our number one wide receiver, and that might be controversial to some folks. They're thinking, and you could argue, Deebo's number one receiver, but to me, it's a Brandon Ayuk, and not having him there, and he would have been part of the game plan because it was a game time decision. So I think that would have changed things up a little bit. But overall, I thought Brock Purdy was solid to good. If I had to give a grade, I'd say B-, C+. Statistically, it's a lot higher, but overall, when you actually watch the game, there were some plays to be made there, some decisions he could have made that were a little bit better. But 2 throws that I thought were just amazing. And there was actually a number of really good throws, but I thought both touchdown throws were really, really good from Brock Purdy. That Ronnie Bell touchdown was only a 9-yard touchdown throw, but you see it, he has a defender in his face, kind of threw it before Ronnie Bell even broke to his left. To have that trust in the 7th round rookie and hit him perfectly, allowed Ronnie Bell in a great catch too, and focus by Ronnie Bell to get both feet in bounds. Really nice play. And then of course, later in the game to Deebo Samuel, throws it up and kind of just drops it right in the basket for Deebo Samuel. Perfectly placed, I thought. It was one of those kind of like floating passes that you're kind of waiting forever for it to drop, but a great throw and great catch by Deebo Samuel. So overall, good performance from Purdy. Now, if we move on to the run game, Christian McCaffrey, I thought, this was the first game this season that he didn't have that like monster run. In Pittsburgh, the 65-yard touchdown run against the Rams last week, he had a 51-yard run. This week, the longest run, 12 yards, but I thought he was just consistently getting good yards. You know, there would be 10-yard runs here, 4-yard runs here, but always kind of moving forward. If I do have to give a bit of a shout out to the New York Giants, I thought that linebacker Micah McFadden played really, really well. Had a couple of nice tackles behind the backfield, I think 1 or 2 on McCaffrey, but overall I thought McCaffrey had a good game. You know, he's not going to go for 100 plus yards every single game, but he has another touchdown, and really just one of those guys who causes so many problems for opposing defenses. McCaffrey also had a couple of catches too. Then you move on to Elijah Mitchell. I thought we kind of forced the issue with Mitchell. You know, 11 carries, didn't hit, 40 yards. Not great, not awful either, but I think it was a case where, and Shanahan mentioned this after the Rams game, that we can't run McCaffrey into the ground. Of course, this being a Thursday night game, the players all had less time to rest and recover from that game, so it was natural to see Mitchell a little bit more in this game. Thought he looked okay, but not as explosive as we've seen in the past. Then when you move on to some of our receivers, and Deebo Samuel, vintage Deebo Samuel game. Think back in that game, 3rd and 15, the quick screen pass, great blocking downfield by Aaron Banks and a number of other players. Deebo picks up the first down, maybe a couple of other plays, got 30 yards here. The touchdown was such a great play. Great to see Deebo go over 100 yards receiving and just look like the 2021 version that we've all known to love. And that's the thing about Deebo. We love that version of Deebo Samuel. George Kittle, great game too. 90 yards heading into this game. He only had 49 receiving yards on the season. Gets 90 week 3, and I think that's going to be a trend moving forward, that you want to get George Kittle a little bit more involved in the passing game. He did have a really nice 30-yard reception, a lot of which came, yards after the catch, which, they're the Yak Bros. You love to see those plays being made. Shout out to Ronnie Bell, 7th round rookie. He had 2 heads-up plays. We talked about him a little bit earlier in this video. The touchdown, great play to get his feet in bounds, to have that awareness. But then the play where I think they threw it to either, it was Deebo or Jawan maybe, the ball kind of flips up in the air and Ronnie Bell makes the heads-up catch. And I think it was for a first down too in the red zone. So really good job there by the rookie. The Niners overall statistically looked really good offensively. I think the one area that wasn't great was there were times where I did see Aaron Banks get beat a couple of times. Colton McKivitz to me is the one, negative really to take away from this game. There were numerous run plays where he didn't even put a hand on any defender, and that caused a number of TFLs for the New York Giants. So Colton McKivitz, look, I'm not willing to write the guy off just yet. He didn't play a lot in his first few years of his career. It's only the 3rd week of the season, and it was a short week too. Preparation, again, not the same. I'd like to see McKivitz bounce back in a big way against Arizona. They don't really have any premier elite rushers on the edge. You'd like to see him gain some confidence in that week 4 game next week, because week 5, Micah Parsons, he is coming to town. And, if he thought TJ Watt, Micah Parsons and TJ Watt, they're right neck and neck with each other. So that we can't have another disaster like week 1, giving up 3 sacks. McKivitz definitely needs to be better. I think he bounces back next week against Arizona. Hopefully that pushes his confidence in the right direction. But next up, we're going to talk about how the 49ers defense did against the New York Giants offense. The 49ers defense had another really, really solid performance, only giving up 12 points, giving up less than 150 yards, which is ridiculous. And if you look at this game, I thought the defensive line played really, really well, much better than they did against the LA Rams. I thought Kinlaw actually had a really nice game. We saw Javon Hargrave, he had a sack. Nick Bosa got his first sack, and that was a great play by Bosa. Didn't bite on the play action and just took Daniel Jones down almost for a safety. But overall, you look at the run defense, and that just, that was what the Giants needed to do. And it was going to be very difficult for the Giants to establish any run game. They didn't have Saquon Barkley. They didn't have their left tackle, their, franchise left tackle, Andrew Thomas. So things were always going to be tough against this 49ers defense, but they just got nothing going. They had maybe, 20-something yards in the entire game. rushing the ball, 2 point something yards per carry average, just not good at all. Outside of the Matt Breida rushing touchdown, they basically did nothing against us. And then that forced Daniel Jones to have to try and beat us. The other thing which I like a lot too, which is what it seemed like the Niners defense did, was they were really spying Daniel Jones. They didn't let Daniel Jones beat us with his legs, and that's one of the things that we talked about in my preview, that if the Giants are going to win this game, then Daniel Jones is going to have to make plays with his legs. The Niners defense did a really, really good job of containing him, not allowing him to beat us, get those big chunk yards with his legs, get a number of first downs. I thought we did really, really well there. And ultimately, the game plan was fairly simple. I think, with the New York Giants, their offensive line, they have a couple of injuries. We knew it was going to be quick passes, just get the ball out quick, and they weren't able to establish the run game. And the Niners defense did a really good job of making the tackles, staying within their defense, and they just didn't really give up a whole lot, which is just great to see. Now, you could argue it's maybe a little bit of like a bend, don't break and whatnot, but at the end of the day, the results speak for themselves. We only gave up 12 points, less than 150 yards. You do also have to credit the offense for moving the ball pretty well too, but only giving up 10 first downs, I believe, in the entire game. Really impressive stuff there from the 49ers defense. If I have to talk about some, standout players, I really liked how Isaiah Oliver looked in this game for the second week in a row. I thought last week he came on against the Rams, looked really good, had a number of big plays. And this week, again, some really nice tackles, some really nice coverage down the field too. And maybe it took Isaiah Oliver, he kind of was essentially benched week 1, and maybe that really just kind of opened his eyes, being like, okay, I got to step my game up. And the last 2 weeks, I think he's played really, really good football, and that's helping out the 49ers defense, especially with the nickel position, because Sammy Womack, he's going to be out for another 2 months. So having a guy like Isaiah Oliver, a veteran guy, really stepping up, still pretty young too, that's a really good sign for the 49ers. I thought Fred Warner was really good. Dre Greenlaw, I thought, was good, made a really nice tackle on Daniel Jones. One thing with Greenlaw is, and it's an interesting thing to have to kind of talk to him about, but some of these, unnecessary roughness, like those can really hurt our defense, and those can really hurt the team. You don't really want to rein him in too much, because I think Greenlaw, one of the things that makes him just so good is that he plays with that aggressiveness, and if you kind of tell him to rein that in, maybe he thinks too much and he's not going to be as good as he is. But I do think he just kind of have to reiterate to be smart, make the play, but also know when the play is over. And I think Greenlaw, outside of that, he looked really good. Hufanga, a heads-up play. Hufanga is just one of those guys, one of those safeties to me who he's always in the right place at the right time to make the play. Like to get the interception, Fred Warner, it hits off Fred, the ball flips up, Hufanga catches it. Great heads-up play, and just really good to see Hufanga building off of what he did last year. The defense looking great. I thought Tashawn Gibson looked really good. Defensive line looked a lot better. Shout out Kinlaw. I thought he had maybe one of his better games as a 49er in this game, and that's really good moving forward. So overall, I thought the defense, look at the numbers. They speak for themselves, and I thought the performance backed it up. Not a spectacular day in terms of splash plays. We had the 1 interception, just 2 sacks, but overall, that performance, you will take that every single game of the season. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about special teams. Jake Moody continues to be perfect. Granted, pretty much all of his field goals were really within the red zone, and that is maybe one other thing you could potentially harp on with the offense, is that maybe the red zone offense could have been a little bit more consistent. We did have to settle for all 3 of Jake Moody's field goals were resulting from not being able to convert into touchdowns in the red zone. But going back to special teams, Jake Moody hit every field goal, hit all the extra points. Love to see that. I thought Wishnowsky did a very solid job punting the ball. Ray McLeod, really solid in returning punt returns. I don't even think he got a chance to return a kick in the game. We had good punt return coverage, so special teams, very solid. Tabor Pepper had one kind of high snap. Wishnowsky did a great job to hold it. Moody puts the ball between the posts. And overall, you look at this game and it wasn't, although the scoreline and the stats were very dominating, and I've said that many times in this video, it didn't seem like a polished performance, I would say. But that's one of those things where it is week 3, it's a Thursday night game, and I think it's still going to take some time. We know that Shanahan teams, especially the offense, can take like a month to 6 weeks before it really hits the ground running. This year we've hit 30 points every single game so far, so we're still getting the results, which is good. But you'd like to think against Arizona in week 4, Brock Purdy cleans a few things up. The offense and the offensive line, they clean it up a little bit, just have that more polished performance. But overall, I'm really happy with how the Niners looked. And moving on to week 4, can't wait to be there to see the Niners hosting the Arizona Cardinals. But there you have it, guys. Those are my thoughts, some of my takeaways from this week 3 matchup. And it's great to have the Niners 3-0. If we think back to last year, after week 3 against the Broncos, we were 1-2. So this is a massive turnaround. If we, continue on this fast start, that would be great, because the Niners, we have some tough games coming up on the schedule. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Before I go, I want to hear your guys' thoughts on the win against the New York Giants. Who are some of your standout players? Are there any causes for concern that we need to think about moving forward? And if you enjoy the content, do drop a like on the video. Feel free to share it on social media. If you enjoy the content as well, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But that's going to be it, guys. I'm going to say 2 things before I head out. The butt counts, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.